So I saw this film last week called The Iron Claw, and I thought it was great. I'll probably give my thoughts more on it after the video. And I came across this video called Why the Iron Claw. It's a modern day classic. I figured I'd watch it and give my thoughts on it. I did watch half of it last week, but then I thought, you know what? Let's react to it.
The Bonner will forever be the greatest family in the history of wrestling.
So this is my first time watching this guy, a piece of media.
You know, being a born-again wrestling fan, thanks to the actual good stories in wrestling...
There are no good stories in wrestling. Trust me, I grew up watching WWE and wrestling. There are no good stories in wrestling.
This guy being out of the company...
Screw you! You're fired!
Great character, horrible person.
And seeing my boy Troy Bolton and Jeremy the Bear Allen White...
Fuck off my expo chef now!
I was pretty excited by the announcement of Sean Durkin's The Iron Claw.
You see, I didn't even know this film existed until, I think I saw a friend post about it on Instagram. I was like, what is this? And I looked it up, and it was about the story of the Von Erichs, and I was like, oh, they made it into a movie. So I had to go out and watch this movie.
Story of the rise and fall of the iconic Von Erich family, produced by A24. Devastating should be the only word ringing in your head. Along with the film's first
If you don't have a heart, this movie's not for you.
trailer, it not only oozes pure red-blooded Americana, but also the iconic aura of 90s films, the sunset gradients, the film-like filter, and the handheld authentic cinematography, all
Film like filter. I'm pretty sure this film was shot on film. Let me double check that. So yeah, it looks like it was shot on film on an RE235. Yeah, IMDb says 35mm, though I wonder what stock they used.
the film-like filter, and the handheld authentic cinematography all aid in making this nostalgic yet modern take on filmmaking. If there was any question as to whether
There's a film camera right there.
Yet modern take on filmmaking. If there was any question as to whether Sean Durkin has the sauce to keep working in the industry, the Iron Claw should put those away.
Yeah, the Iron Claw, the direction was fantastic.
As tragic as the real-life events are, he does handle it beautifully and mostly with care. Mostly. It's not gonna affect how I'm gonna rate the film at the end of the day, but there were some notable missing story beats about the Von Erich family, like the fake brother or Fritz drawing his gun on Kevin, pretty much egging him on to take his life as well. And that's the thing, the family story is so incredibly dense and so much that I'll honestly give Durkin praise for carefully picking up the high-level story beats to make an efficient yet fulfilling film. But in those trade-offs for an efficient 2-ish hour film, there were at times when I felt both the storytelling and some dialogue felt clunky. The film spends a careful amount of
It is greatly condensed timeline, and there is a big thing they took out from the overall story, which I'll get into later. But I don't remember any dialogue being clunky. But that's just me, though.
of time building the family up, setting the seeds for the characters to grow emotionally and story-wise, giving a montage of their heights and falls, and by the end of it, it completely pulls the rug out of you by the end. Which is by design, and makes for a good change of pace, but given the amount of undercutting in emotion to bring dread in an instant, felt jarring and a bit repetitive at times.
Were there any bonding exercises that you guys did?
Trust falls or anything? Did we? Kind of. I mean,
that's kind of what wrestling is.
As far as our cast goes, they're phenomenal. Putting aside the realistic wrestling choreography, everyone in the family works to give a good old-fashioned 80s Texan vibe. This film made me realize the faults of the setting in stone of the Oscar nominations during the fall months, because Zac Efron gives a shockingly great dramatic performance that in previous years would be an easy Best Actor nod.
I think he should have been nominated. It was a great performance.
But it's not. Not only because it's too stacked of a year, but too late of a release that it doesn't have enough time to build goodwill, and it should. I also like while he...
A lot of Oscar contenders come out on like Christmas Day. Really, what makes something an Oscar contender is whether the studio is willing to back it at the Academy and just completely push it out. Like living in LA, you'll see posters like, "Oh, for your consideration, Killers of the Flower Moon," or stuff like that. And I didn't see anything for Iron Claw, which is a shame, I feel.
Is the lead, he feels as if he holds the film's story at an arm's length. While he is experiencing it and he is the main character after all, the way the story is being told, it's as if the film's events are inevitable, making the Von Erich curse motif come through the screen beyond just a line on the page. The supporting cast also props up the film's melodrama. Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson, and Stanley Simmons give great performances and evoke that phenomenal brotherly chemistry along with Efron. And while
Yeah, they felt like brothers for sure.
Holt McClaney is great as Fritz Von Erich, he could have gone a bit more brutal and a bit more cold. Now, some flashes are shown here and there, especially in the opening scene, the end, and his subtle mannerisms throughout.
There was also something about like, it was like we weren't able to celebrate until Fritz moved away. There almost had to be like a moment of kind of like stoicism around him, and then once he got far enough away, we felt like we were comfortable enough to kind of like have a moment together. Yeah.
But he never gets to the level I've always seen him talked about or documented through the numerous pieces of media said about him, or he even said about himself. But that's all just a bit nitpicky. The only glaring casting
I feel including that aspect of him to that degree would have felt cartoony even if it wasn't. So I think the director, I'm sorry, his name is slipping my mind right now. I think he made the right choice in that regard.
or performance was Ric Flair. While he got the cadence of his monologues kinda right, he didn't talk about the film's 90s vibe and aura, and with the 70s and 80s backdrop, Texas Ranch, and the gritty yet smooth camera work, it achieves that, and it only enhances the experience. It feels authentic as it can, and it's aesthetically appropriate for the direction of the film. I mean, just listen to the soundtrack.
In terms of score, nothing really stuck out at me after the fact, but within the movie, it did its job. Like, I think it paired well with the imagery on screen, I feel.
Tell me that does not get your blood pumped. And all this beauty in its storytelling, aesthetics, and chemistry makes the film even more heartbreaking given the story at hand. The clashing of those warm and cold aspects makes for a cathartic nightmare for Kevin Von Erich to all but overcome. Weirdly enough, for how golden it is, it feels very Kafkaesque. Sean Durkin's The Iron Claw isn't gonna get nominated for any big awards.
Which is a shame. Like, even before the nominations came out, I think we all knew deep down. Like, there wasn't much of a push for it, but I think there should have been.
Not because it's not great, but because it's too crowded. It's a real human drama that has all the makings to become a modern-day classic. Its heart isn't only seen, but it's felt through the performances of the Von Erichs, the film's atmosphere, and Durkin's masterful direction to give service to wrestling's most iconic family. I'm feeling a very strong 4.5 stars on this. I really love this.
I think I gave it a 5 on Letterboxd, but yeah, I mostly agree with this guy.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.
So yeah, that was a great video by A Piece of Media, I believe his name was. So let me just get into my thoughts on the film. I think it was a great film, like emotional, intelligent. It was heartbreaking for sure. The ending, like, movies rarely get to me, but the ending got to me, especially when Zac Efron is with his 2 kids at the end. And the exchange they share is just absolutely heartbreaking. Now, this film did cut out an entire brother, Chris Von Erich, which is a shame. Like, I understand why they did it. I don't think it's right though, because that is a real human, a real brother that's just gone. And I think they should have found some way to bring him into the story. I don't know how I would have done it, TBH, but I think that is like the biggest sin this movie has against it. Because overall, I wouldn't call it perfect. I don't think there is such thing as a perfect movie. But like, this movie just has so much going for it. Like, these 3 actors, they genuinely feel like brothers. And like I said at the beginning, I grew up a wrestling fan watching WWE. So seeing a movie that takes wrestling as seriously and treats it respectfully is always nice. And I also like how it kind of explains to the audience how wrestling is fake, but how the titles do mean something to the wrestlers. And I know a lot of people have bagged on the Ric Flair performance, but I think it fits because Ric Flair is a character. So the guy is essentially playing a guy, he's playing a character, so that's why it's really over the top. Whereas Ric Flair, in this movie, when you see him in the locker room, he just seems like any other guy, because that's who Ric Flair was, he was just a guy. He does have some allegations against him though. And overall, I would love to see more films like the Iron Claw made. Just small scale, just simple, it's emotional, shot on film. I would love to shoot on film one day, but that is a whole nother thing. So yeah, please check out A Piece of Media. I will link this video in the description below. Great video, and see you next time.